Hello,
Hello.
everyone. Hopefully, everybody can hear me. Welcome, welcome. So, if you just, guys, just to make sure that you can hear me and everything's okay before we get started with Julian, I wondered if you could just, say hi in the chat box, and let's see who's online and who is here. It's going to be a great presentation tonight. Really looking forward to this. If you're here and you can hear us and everything's okay, just type in the chat box. You reach the chat box, by the way, guys, just the little chat symbol at the top there. Thomas from Bristol. Hi, how you doing? Welcome. Jim's here. Hi, Jim. And Ruth. Hello, hello. Poojan.
Hey, it's Poojan. Hello, Poojan. How you doing? Can you hear me all right,
Adolph.
Jason?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear, Julian, no problem. Can
Excellent.
everyone hear Julian all right?
There we go. There's me.
There
Yes,
we go.
people can hear me.
Perfect. That's great. That's great. Who else? Oh, there he is. You've just come up for me now. Perfect. So we've got quite a few people on board tonight. It's going to be a great presentation from Julian, as they always are, very in depth. So you're getting a lot of free content tonight, actually, guys. A real lot of free content. I think, basically, as long as everyone can hear us and everything's okay, we'll just kick right off and get started. So first time Julian's used this different webinar platform. It's pretty new to me as well, to be honest, but it's really, really good. Just to give you a little guide as to how it all works, everybody. At the top, you'll see like a chat symbol, which some of you have already found because you've already been putting in the chat box there. And then you've got the little man sort of symbol in a circle. You can just click that to alternate between the chat and any resources and handouts that we give you throughout the workshop. And you can also, as well, once the presentation starts, you can kind of drag the presenter up and down and then have more of the slides, or you can have more of the presenter and less of the slides. It's up to you. So it's a pretty flexible system, and everyone should find it really, really refreshing actually to use some of these other webinar software. So without sort of further ado then, Julian, if you're ready and able to start sort of sharing your screen, that would be great.
Okay. We've had Ruth say that she can't find her way back to the video.
Oh dear, she's stuck in chat. Press the chat box again, Ruth. See if you can do that. You're on an iPad, okay. So yeah, maybe your options are to either press the symbol again that got you to chat, or just restart and come back in on the presentation. That's probably what I'd recommend.
Okay.
All right. Okay, Julian, are you okay to share your screen?
Yeah, I'm going to start sharing. You've got me on loudspeaker, I think, so I getting a bit of a feedback. So let's have a look. So I've got here main presentation. Hang on a minute. I'm just going to check this. How do I install? Right. So this is where we have the technology thing. So hang on a second. Here we go. I'm just going to have to add on.
A quick tiny little piece of software. So while he's doing that, I'll just keep you guys occupied, and then as soon as he's ready, he can come back on and do his presentation. I've seen it. It's pretty in depth. I'll tell you now, it is pretty in depth. So if you could all just tell me a little bit about yourself while we're waiting. Let's get to know each other a little bit. So who at the moment has got an HMO? I'd be very interested. Who's got an HMO at the moment that they would probably like to make look a lot better and get more rent for? You can just type in the chat box there. Just say yes or no, or just let me know how many HMOs you've got. Cool, Mitz has got some. And who else has got some? Cool, Bruce has got one. Mitz has got 9. Poojan's buying one. Great. Well, you're in the right place then, Poojan, because Julian's going to help basically show you exactly what's what. And then, yeah, great. Jane has got none so far. Well, that's fine, Jane. At least you're going to be fully prepared for when you do to make them look stunning right from the off. So it's going to be fantastic. And Thomas is just starting his HMO journey. Well, that's cool, Thomas. Again, you're in the right place. This is perfect. You're going to get great rents right from day one. So, this presentation is going to be fantastic from Julian. There it is. You can just see now Julian's setting it all up. We can see his screen. So that's perfect. All right, Julian, is your microphone working and everything? Just maybe just a switch on at the top there. And that's
can you hear
it.
me now?
And then you can choose whether you want your camera on or off.
Okay, well, I'm going to put my camera off for the moment. And if you can see my slides okay, let me know, and then I can put the camera on, because I don't want to just ruin the bandwidth on this, okay?
Okay, yeah, no worries. That's great. I'll disappear from here now, then I'll let you do.
Brilliant. Okay, well, butt in if you can. Can you hear me all right? So hopefully you can hear me. This is not what I'm used to, this software, so I will just carry on. If Jason, can you just come back on for a moment? I'll tell you what.
Julian,
I'll start the slides. If people can't hear me, I'm sure Jason can butt in.
That's so, how you have it now, Julian. It's perfect.
Brilliant. I'll crack on then. Okay. So I'm going to be talking about the boutique principle, which is, I guess, how I've been running my business for quite some time, and how I look at how I run my property business as well. And also, I kind of taken a lot of inspiration from very profitable companies. I'm going to share with you how I've used their techniques and applied that to my own property business, and how it's really improved my profits. So the aim of this presentation this evening really is to share some marketing techniques that I think will make your business more successful, make you a bit more aware of how to pitch your product when you're getting involved in a competitive market. And then I'm going to share with you a couple of very easy to apply and low cost design techniques that I've used to increase the value of property. And these are just interior design techniques that I've used for many years. And I guess people are kind of latching on to the interior design side of things now. And this kind of still gives me an edge over other people, because people tend to do things in the same old ways. And these are slightly different ways of doing things. So just to share with you my own personal experience with property, just to kind of tell you what I've worked in and the experience I've got. I started working property in 1997, I believe it was 1997, and I've started in a estate agency, worked as a letting agent. Then I started sourcing property and started my own business in 2002, actually as a property sourcer, which is finding properties for investors. But very quickly, I found myself getting a lot of people coming to me, asking me to do their refurb projects for them. Because I'm a creative person, I also understand that if you add a bit of extra, I guess if you make a property stand out a little bit and you make it a little bit different, then it rents faster. You can get better tenants, etc. You can sell it for more. And that was kind of stuff that I've learned. I mean, this is kind of common sense stuff, but a lot of people don't do it. And I used to get referrals for doing refurbs. And I just, from probably about 2002, 2003 onwards, I've just been renovating properties full time since then. I've started investing in property in 2012. It's not been I guess it's not as easy as it used to be to invest in property. Prices aren't really going up that much, especially where I am. But I'm managing to get good profit margins from the properties that I own, consistent letting, even though the market is getting more competitive. I tend to pitch my product at the top end. So I guess that comes back to my kind of boutique mindset, or this kind of way of thinking about your product, that it has enabled me to always stay one step ahead of the game. I'm also got trade skills, so I can fit a kitchen, fit a bathroom. I'm a qualified plumber. I've refurbished properties myself. I probably choose not to do it now. It's a lot of hard work, and there are better ways of making money than picking up toolbox and driving around a transit van all the time. But I've project managed projects for over 10 years now, 15 years. So those are the kind of skill sets that I've got. I want to share with you some of the results that have been achieved, because more recently, probably over the last 3 years, 3 years I've been delivering training. I've been working with people to help them create great HMOs, or great, if they're doing developments, etc. I help them with their design side of things. And these are some of the results that have been achieved from people that have come on the training, or that I've worked with. And this is Roxanne. She came on my training course a couple of months ago, I believe. And this was some photographs that she sent back to me of an HMO that she's just finished. So I guess what I teach people is having that extra attention to detail, and to create a product that when it's presented online, when it's advertised online, it attracts tenants really, really fast. Now, these aren't expensive interiors, but it's things like how to choose materials, how to work with colors, what proportions of colors you need to use, where to buy your furniture from, etc. That's kind of what I teach people, and this is how they apply what I teach them. This is Sam's property. This was her first ever refurb, and I just think this is just amazing. If you just look at the side of the picture, the door handle, and I guess it's the detail that really makes a property stand out, and I think she's put in a lot of hard work into this. So well done, Sam. And it's great to see the results coming in, because I guess this, when you get into property, it's not a cheap game to get into, and if you create a great product that's going to bring in good income for a long period of time, I guess that's really what it's all about, is to create something that you're going to have a lot of success with. You're not going to have problems with renting out, and I guess speedy letting, good tenants, etc. is what it's a sign of a healthy business. So I've got hopefully it's three main principles, but I've got three main business principles that I work to, especially when it comes to design. And what I will say, that design isn't just feature walls and nice cushions. Design goes a lot deeper than that, and I guess for me it's a mindset issue. It's understanding that design is a lot deeper than just the finishing touches. It goes through, well, I'm going to go through it a bit later on anyway, but design starts at very early stages of a project, and it can have a dramatic result on your profitability and your income that you can make on that product or that property that you've purchased. And while I think if you've got lots of properties under your belt and you've got a lot of equity and you might have huge amounts of cash flow coming in, you can afford to make mistakes. But I think if you're starting out on your property journey, and it's not easy to get your first properties under your belt, but if you make mistakes on your first properties, then it's much harder to pick yourself up after that, especially in today's market. It's not easy. So every penny counts. And to me, it's really important that every product that you buy, every property that you buy has to work well. And so to make that work well, these are the three principles that I follow. The first one is to create a product that people love to use. So that's, I know it's self-explanatory, but when somebody walks into a property, how are they going to feel? Are they going to feel inspired? Are they going to feel that they want to live in it straight away? And when they move in, how easy is it going to be for them to use their room or the space that they're in? How easy is it? Are there instructions and everything else? So the product that you create has to be something that people love to use and something that's easy to use as well. It's very important. Customer service is another really important thing. Now, customer service isn't just at the front end. So customer service isn't just shaking their hand, giving them the keys and handing them their tenancy agreement, and then that's it. Good customer service is really about keeping customers happy and keeping customers loyal. Because as a landlord, and I will be specific about property, as a landlord, I guess for me anyway, the most difficult time is when your tenants give you notice and you have to start finding new tenants. You have to advertise, you have to go to the room and give it a clean, make sure it's all okay. Then you have to meet people on site and then do more tenancy agreements, etc. So it's quite expensive to have to find new tenants. So if you can keep your existing tenants happy, you're far less likely to have people leaving and have that churn of customers. So good customer service is a very good way of retaining loyalty within your customer base, and that leads to just increased profits. The other side, the third thing is being proactive about maintaining your product. Now, if you're doing a single let, or if you are handing the responsibility of managing your asset or your business to somebody else, in our business, in property, it's going to be a letting agent. I found that letting agents are not proactive when it comes to maintenance. They will tell you when something goes wrong. They will repair that specific thing, but they're not going to come to you in a year and go, you know what, Julian, your property's looking a little bit, it's going a bit downhill. I think it could really do with a coat of paint. It could do with the carpets being shampooed, etc., etc. They don't do that. They'll only tell you there's a problem when you start seeing voids. And by then it's too late. So for me, getting involved in property, I'm hands-on. I don't go and visit the properties every week, but rental properties take a lot of punishment. And if you don't maintain them in good order, they're far less likely to attract good tenants or attract tenants quickly once tenants give notice, etc. You've got to maintain them and keep them in good order. Single lets maybe not so much, but HMOs, if you're doing multi-lets, it is so important to keep up with maintenance and keep things in good order. Because if you do that, the property and the product will last longer, and that means it will look better for longer, and it will keep attracting tenants and customers in that way. The other thing to bear in mind as well, other people are getting in the marketplace all the time. So while your house may have looked brilliant in July 2017, in July 2020, it's going to start looking might look a bit worn. And people that are buying a property in July 2020, they're going to have a brand new product. And anyone that's preparing property at that time is going to be probably better than yours. So you've got to bear that in mind. But keeping up to speed, keeping everything looking good is a way of just keeping your product at tip-top condition and by doing that, you're going to keep it it's going to be very good. You're going to be able to market that property again and again and again. So we're going to focus on, I'm going to just share with you my product, because I do put my money where my mouth is. This is my kind of, this is the kind of houses that I buy. I buy little houses. I'm not really into big HMOs. Main reason being is that I believe that a shared house should be a shared house. And there should be a nice bit of communal space for people to relax. I don't like larger HMOs because I think that number one, I think that if you create a large property with lots of separate rooms where people lock themselves away, there's far less likely to communicate with other people in the building, and I don't think there's that shared that sense of community in that kind of environment. The other reason being that these type of houses are very easy to maintain. And they're quite low cost as well. So this is the layout that I choose to go with. It's a kind of 2 up, 2 down, kitchen, 2 reception rooms downstairs, and 2 rooms upstairs. Because it's a small house, I don't really need to put on suites in. I know a lot of people like to put them in. I avoid them wherever possible because of the maintenance issues that you can get with them over time. And just spend the money on the nice decor, nice furniture, etc., etc. So just create a really great house. The other thing I can do with these properties, if the demand changes, there are different strategies I can apply. So serviced accommodation, or even if I really have to, as a single let, although that is my least preferred option. And I could always sell them to a owner occupier as well. There's so many different options on these type of things. So that's why I go for these. And just show you some before and after pictures. That's a before picture, by the way. I buy properties that aren't in horrific condition because I like to spend the money, like I say, on the decor and on the detail. And I find that if you've got to spend too much money on things like roofs and repairs and windows and stuff like that, then it does take away money from the budget for doing things up. So this is probably halfway through the job, and it just shows you the kind of preparation that I do. And in this picture here, it shows that I'm putting a TV on the wall. I've taken out the old fireplace, and you'll notice there's 2 double sockets down below where the AV unit is, and there's HDMI cables. These are I buy quite good HDMI cables, and these allow people, if they move in and they've got an Xbox, or if I want to plug in a Skybox or whatever, that can be done very easily. and because all the connections are already in the wall. So future proofing as well is something that I find is quite important. And that's the room when it's finished. And other things that I put in are things like internet enabled heating systems, just to make it easier for me to run the property and to just keep an eye on things without actually having to go there too much. So that's the finished product. It's probably coming up to about 2 years old, this particular property, and still in very, very good condition. This is bedroom. Another thing that I do is I put in fitted furniture. Now, it might not be everybody's choice, but I find that it gives you a huge amount of storage space for people, and it's rock solid. So wherever possible, and if it's in my budget, I will put in fitted furniture as an option. But you have to be careful when you're putting in fitted furniture because you have to design it yourself. So you really shouldn't leave. If you are going to put in fitted furniture, leave it to the company that's supplying the units to actually specify them. Maybe I'll do a webinar on that one day. So that's the bathroom, just showing you the bathroom finished, just upgraded it. And the kitchen, again, it didn't need too much work, the kitchen. It looks old, but actually the units were in good order. So just putting new worktops, doors, door fronts, handles, tiles, rather than having to strip everything out. So just to give you the cash flow figures on that type of HMO, now the cost of that property was around about £80,000. It was in good order, didn't need a huge amount of spending on it. So on the right hand side, you'll see the income figure and the cash flow. That gives me that's my monthly cash flow figure. And the amount that I've left in the property. So there's a deposit, and there was also some refurb costs in there. On the left-hand side, you'll see the outgoing. So these are all my bills, utilities, council tax, water, mortgage, insurance, cleaning, etc. And then there's the income that's coming in. So I'm left at the end of the month with £650 after all my expenses, less income tax or whatever, but all the costs and everything, that leaves me with £650 a month. So that works out at £216 per room, profit per room per calendar month, which I think is the average is normally about £150 per room. So I'm getting a really good bit of profit on each room. And that's kind of how I work on things, really, is the profitability of a room. So now we're going to get into the webinar itself, and I want to talk to you about working within a market, specifically selling to the consumer, because I guess if you're in a single lets, maybe not quite the same, but any other type of property product, HMOs, serviced accommodation, studios, anything that's furnished, you are selling to the consumer, the same people that buy computers and phones and food and anything you can buy in the shops. We're selling to those people. I guess that's probably one of the reasons why we're seeing a lot of rules and laws coming in to govern us as landlords, because if we're selling, if we're doing up HMOs and we're selling a product to lots of people, they're all living in a small space. I think safety is very important, so we're having to follow all these procedures. But anyway, I'm digressing. I'm going to be talking about selling a product in a competitive market. And one of the things I do kind of shout about is differentiation. Now, one of the things that annoyed me when I started going to a lot of property networking meetings was really seeing people talking about their property product and sharing with everyone how well they were doing. And then they were showing these properties and they were all looking really bland. And, there wasn't really anything that really stood out. And I think the default position for many people that invest in property is, well, we'll just do it to a very basic level. We'll just paint it magnolia. We'll, won't put any kind of creativity into it. We're just going to get it done and get it out, get it on the market. And maybe in the past that worked. But because we're now working in a market where there's a lot more competition, there's a lot more people understand the strategies, the more advanced strategies now, and getting involved in things like HMO and serviced accommodation, the market is becoming busier. And therefore, these kind of rules apply. So differentiation basically means having a unique selling point. So making your business, and in this case, property business, making it stand out so you can attract customers So it's easier to attract customers. If you do not differentiate yourself, if you create a product that doesn't stand out and that just nestles in amongst everything else, then it becomes a lot harder to sell because there is a lot more competition in that area of the market. If you differentiate yourself, then you'll find there's less competition for you because there aren't many people that are doing what you're doing. And I think the big question I think everyone needs to ask themselves when they're getting into business, if you're selling to people, is, why should customers buy from me when they have a choice? And I want to share with you the marketplace and how this actually works, because you've got to ask yourself, if you are getting involved in these strategies, is when that property comes up for rent, why should the customer buy from you when they have a lot of choice? If you're investing in an area where there are a lot of properties out there, what is going to attract the customer to your property? So I've got a graph here, and I normally ask the question. I will ask, although I can't really see what's going on because my slides are taking up the full screen. But on this graph here, it shows you lots of lines, and this represents lots of different scenarios. But essentially, what this is, it shows you what a mature market is like. So there's five different variations, and one of them is correct. So on the left-hand side, the line that goes up on the left-hand side, the vertical line, is from bottom to top is the amount of choice. So the amount of product. If at the top of the line, that's a lot of product. At the bottom of the line is very little product. And then along the bottom, the horizontal line is quality or price. So at the beginning of the line, it's low price, low quality, and at the end of the line, the top end, it's high quality and high price. So these lines really show you, number one, it shows you that at the low end of the market, there's not a lot of product, and at the high end, there's loads of product. These all give you different variations. Now, one of these lines accurately shows you what a busy market, what a mature market, what a competitive market is actually like. Have a look at these lines and maybe think. I'll ask it to you. I'll give you a few seconds to look at these different lines, wavy lines, and think which one actually best represents what a competitive market is like. So just for example, line number three just shows you a line that goes all over the place. And that means that really any market in all different places is slightly different. So you can't really say that there is a pattern to this. Whereas line 5, there's loads of product at the low end and very little product at the high end, etc. Pick one that best represents a competitive market. Okay, a couple of seconds is up. Well, the answer to this is number 2. So a competitive market, and this is any market where you're selling to the consumer, and if it's a busy market, if there's a lot of competition, this is how the market looks. At the low end of the market, there's not a huge amount of competition. And then as you start going up the price range towards the middle, the amount of product that there is on the market grows and grows and grows. And then as the price rises again, the number of products then drop as the price goes higher. So the question is, in terms of market positioning, if you're getting yourself into a competitive market, where would you position yourself in that marketplace? You may not even think about it. If you don't think about it, fair enough. But I would strongly recommend that you do think about market positioning. Every company that is successful has to think about market positioning. So where would you position yourself in that marketplace? Would you like to position your product at the low end of the price range, or in the middle, or at the top, or maybe somewhere else on this graph? A couple of seconds to maybe think about that for a minute. And you may be going high end. Fair enough. Now, I'll just show you where the most competitive brands position themselves in the marketplace. And they spend a lot of time and energy and money to make sure that they don't actually position themselves in the middle. And there is a reason for that. And the reason being is because if you position yourself in the middle of the marketplace, that is where most of the competition puts itself as well. So it's much harder to sell a product if there's more competition in that marketplace. So why position yourself in the middle when actually if you position yourself either at the top or the bottom, you're far more likely to find a customer because there are less customers at that end of the market. I'm not suggesting you put yourself at the top or the bottom, but one of the two is a very good idea. But yet most people who get involved in business position themselves in the middle because they don't really think about market positioning, and they end up with a product that's pretty average. Now, I would never do that because it's a lot harder to sell. And again, if you retranslate this into property, if it's harder to sell your product, you're going to have more void periods. You're going to have rooms empty, and that takes your profit away. So if you've got an HMO, let's say a 5-bed HMO, and 2 rooms are empty, you're not going to make profit. So it is important that you fill rooms, which is why I'm pointing out the fact that, you know, if you don't think about market positioning, if you don't look at your product in this way, it is highly likely that you're going to end up in the middle of the market, and that is where all the competition is. So I want to show you how this works, because Airbnb have got a nice little, very helpful little button. Now, Airbnb is where you would market serviced accommodation. But if this button was on Rightmove, or if this button was on Spare Room, you would find the same scenario. So I just want to show you the marketplace in Brighton. This is my hometown for many years. And this shows you the graph here. So when you click on price range, it shows you all of the properties in the area. And it shows you here that there's not a lot at the low end. And quickly the number of product rises. It goes up in the middle, and then it starts coming down again as prices rise. Now, just showing you the number of properties at the low, middle and high end of the market in Brighton. When I went and moved my price dots to the low end, there were 152 product at that kind of end of the market. Then when I moved the price range to the middle, the number of properties went up to 300 plus. Now, that I don't think they actually tell you how many product there is. Once it goes over 300, it just says 300 plus. And then when I moved the price range to the high end of the market, the number of product dropped again down to 65 rentals. So this just shows you how this works. In a competitive market, there's not a lot of product at the bottom, there's loads of product in the middle, and then it drops down again once you get to the high end. And this can be in any market. Let's look at Edinburgh, and the same thing is happening. You'll see that the graph goes up in the middle and then down again as you rise to the higher end of the market. This is Birmingham. This again shows you product rising in the middle, dropping down at the end. And I think we've got Leeds here, which is my hometown. And again, it shows you a sharp rise, and then as the prices go up and up and up, the number of product drops. So where you really don't want to position yourself is where that bar is right at the top, the kind of the longest, I guess the longest bar there. You kind of want to avoid that area of the market, really, because you've got a lot more people that are trying to attract customers in that section. This shows you Spare Room. Now, Spare Room is actually quite frightening, because on Spare Room, there can be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rooms or adverts, and some adverts may have as many as 5 or 6 empty rooms on an advert. So it really doesn't actually tell you how many rooms there are available. It just tells you how many adverts. And in a lot of areas now, the number of adverts is rising and rising and rising. And you'll notice there'll be pages and pages of new product as well. However, saying that, there aren't that many good quality properties on Spare Room in any chosen area. There are more people, admittedly, painting things like feature walls and putting cushions in, but they're not doing it very well, and they're doing it in a very half-hearted way. Or what they're doing is they're going to a company that supplies all this stuff in their pack, and everybody seems to be buying the same pack. So you'll see 10 pictures of the same type of rooms dotted all over the place, and they tend to be the higher end product. So still, again, it's much easier to differentiate yourself in the marketplace if you're doing something a bit more creative. And that's what I've found every time I've looked on Spare Room. But I want to show you the average product on Spare Room. Now, this is typical of what is available if you go into the kind of lower to mid-range on Spare Room. This is typical. A bed, a wardrobe, a chest of drawers, maybe a bedside cabinet, magnolia walls, white woodwork, maybe a window blind, maybe a lampshade, but that's about it. This room, there's not even handles on the chest of drawers. So how on earth you're going to open the drawers? So when I go back to my 3 principles, it's got to be good. It's got to be something that you'd love to use, easy to use, that product is not easy to use. That is not going to get you customer loyalty there anyway. So moving on to the next average picture. Here again, we have a product where, I mean, it just amazes me. They've got wardrobes without the door handles and they've not even taken the wrapping off the wardrobes or the bed. So that again shows poor level of customer service. Here's another. This was a main picture of a spare room and it just shows you a bathroom. I mean, you know, the amount of pictures on spare room where all they'll show you is a bathroom or a picture of a kitchen or a kitchen in the living room. You'll be amazed. And I've even seen this on Airbnb, seen horrific photographs. If you want to rent a room, this isn't going to rent a room. Here's another one. This was advertised as being luxury accommodation, but just it's, you know, I think a prison cell is better equipped actually. But there you go. That's what this person has done. Here's another one. So the specification is very, very similar. And if you're looking for a room as a customer, looking on spare room and looking for rooms, and you see lots and lots of product that look like that, it's very uninspiring. And I tell you, people, when they look for somewhere to live, want somewhere nice to live. It's just a basic fact. If you're looking for somewhere to live, you're going to want somewhere nice. If you want somewhere on a budget, fair enough. You can then compromise. But I'm not really interested in finding that type of customer who's looking for something on a budget, because I've always found that if you do things on a budget, if you work with people that want things on a budget, then it's really hard to make money that way. It's much easier to work with people that would rather spend a little bit more to get a better product. You make much more profit that way. So what I want to do now is to show you a well-designed product. So I'm going to go back to this one again. You've seen lots and lots of average product. Now I want to show you a well-designed product. And I want you to think about this from the customer's perspective, how they're going to feel about this product when they've been looking at so many average products. Now, hopefully, when you look at this picture, you think, wow, that's not bad, actually. That's not bad. But the big question is how much more do you think it costs to create a product like this, and when compared to the average product? And hopefully you're kind of looking at this and going, oh, well, not a great deal really. There's a mirror, there's a bedspread, there's a throw, there's 3 cushions and a lamp. But apart from that, really, the specification is very similar. So I would possibly say that this room here is around about 250 quid more in terms of the cost to produce than the average product. But yet, you know, if we're looking at the purchase price of this product, of both those products, you could be looking at £100,000, £150,000 purchase price. So 200 odd quid doesn't actually make a dent in that figure in terms of the overall cost of the project. So to create a product that looks great compared to a product that looks average is actually very little if you take it in context with the overall cost of the product. It's a fraction of the overall cost. And yet it makes such a big difference, because if you put your product onto the market and you put it on like that, you're going to be finding it a lot harder to sell that product. Whereas if you put a product like this on the market, which is about 200 quid more out of maybe 150,000, you'll find a customer much, much quickly, much, much faster. They'll pay more money for it, and you'll have a lot less aggravation. So it's profitable in lots of different ways. And yet the difference is really not a lot in terms of price. But yet, going back to that graph that I showed you where, you know, all the product tends to be located in the middle. Most people, when they put a product onto the market, they do not think about market positioning. They don't think about the detail, and they create an average product. So they lose a fortune really when it actually costs that. It doesn't really cost that much to do. So, you know, is the extra effort worth it? What I want to do now is to show you how profitable this can be. And also I want to show you that, you know, this is what all the high profitable brands do when they create a product. They create a product that's nicely designed, but actually the cost of doing it is very little when you compare it to, you know, what their competitors do to create an average product. So let's look at creating a product that people love. And I want to show you 2 products here. I'm going to show you 2 bags. One of them is a Louis Vuitton bag, and one of them is a bag that is sold in Debenhams. Now, they're both leather bags, and yet one of them makes a huge amount more profit than the other one. Now, admittedly, Louis Vuitton have been making bags for a long time. They've established a brand. But just if we look at the cost to manufacture of these products, the cost to manufacture the bag on the left is £15. Louis Vuitton spend quite a bit more to create a product that is got better. It's better made. It's more attractive. It's got nice little design features on it. They also spend money on branding, etc., to create value. Now, when it comes to selling these bags, this is what they sell for. Now, Louis Vuitton is one of the world's most profitable brands. If you look at Apple, if you look at Dyson, if you look at any of these, global brands that makes huge profit, what you'll find is that their product really doesn't cost that much more to produce than their competitors. And yet, because they focus on design, and because they focus on branding, and because they focus on the detail and the little finishing touches, etc., in the packaging, they can make huge profits. They can sell the product for so much more than the actual difference in the cost to do all these little extras. So, Louis Vuitton compared to Debenhams, Louis Vuitton sell one bag, and Debenhams, to make the same profit, have to sell 61 bags. So for me, I'd be kind of looking at the Louis Vuitton model thinking, they really I think they've nailed it on the head there when it comes to making good profit. They only have to sell one bag, but Debenhams have to go and sell 61 bags to make the same profit. So let's apply the same thinking to property. And I want to show you two properties. Now, okay, I've got two identical photographs, but these two properties are identical in every way, apart from they're a few doors away. But I found these on Spare Room because I want to show you how applying a bit of TLC, a bit of care and attention to detail into your product can make a huge difference to profits. Now, I'm going to assume, and my figures are based on equal letting, based on the fact that both these properties, let's assume that both these properties have rented out for the same amount of time. One of them is not void. They're both rented out. And so what is the difference in profit between these two products? One of them is a standard product, a middle of the range, a middle of the road house or room. The other one, the person has gone a little bit extra to add value to make the product a little bit more, to make it a higher priced product, to take it out of the middle ground and take it up to the high end. So this is the standard room. Now, this was advertised at £63 a week on Spare Room. And it was below market average. And the reason why it was below market average, or the reason why I think it was below market average, is because he couldn't get rid of it. It was empty. He didn't want it to sit there empty. So he thought, you know what, I'll drop the price. Whereas actually, do you know what? You could have done the same thing his next door neighbor did and put some nice bits and pieces in it and then increased its value. But instead he thought, no, I can't be bothered to do that. I'll just drop the price, just get rid of it. He didn't want to spend the time and the effort doing it, and it's cost him dearly. Whereas his neighbor a few doors away has the same room. It's the same type of house. It's even the same furniture. I'll go back. Hopefully you can see this and there's not too much of a delay. But that furniture is pretty basic. The bed is a metal frame bed. Nothing special. He hasn't put a light bulb and a lampshade in, which I think is a really stupid thing. But his next door neighbor has made the bed, put some curtains up, put a lamp on the bedside table, put a nice light fitting on the ceiling and put a picture up behind the bed and just made it look nice. As a result, he's charging £100 a week for exactly the same sized room in exactly the same area. Now, that's a £37 increase over his competition. Let's say these houses were back to back. Let's say they were next door to each other. This room here is making £37 more per week than the room the other side of the wall. So if we look at the profit margin, the difference in profit, the same way as I've looked at the Louis Vuitton bag and the Debenhams bag, let's look at the profitability of these two products next to each other. Now, the high spec room is £37 a week, more expensive than the standard room, which was £63 a week. That's 58% difference in sale price. So the gross difference in the sale price is 58% on just one room. Okay. Now, the only problem with this graph is I've not included the running costs of that HMO. So I don't know if you remember the graph that I showed you right at the beginning, and I showed you my house and I showed you the incomings and the outgoings, and that gave me the profit figure. Well, I've not included the outgoings the bills, the mortgage, etc. But when you include that into this equation, what you find is that both these, because they're both the same type of houses, the costs are going to be the same on both. So once you include the cost, the running costs, the increase in profit between the high spec room and the standard room goes up by another 50%. So the increase, the net increase in profit between the high spec room and the average room is 114%. So for every one room, the owner of the high spec houses owns or is renting out, the guy next door with the really crappy rooms, who hasn't bothered to put in the nice details, needs 2 rooms to make the same profit. For every one house the guy that makes his rooms look nice has, the guy next door who's got the crappy rooms needs 2 of the houses to make exactly the same profit. So just like Louis Vuitton only have to sell 1 bag to make a profit, and Debenhams have to sell 61 bags to make exactly the same profit, these 2 property owners, these 2 landlords, both own the same type of house in the same location, but one of them needs 1 house, whereas the other guy who's got the average product needs to have 2 houses to make the same profit. So for me, it really doesn't make sense to create a product that really doesn't have any differentiation. Because if you do, you have 2 options when things get really difficult. One of them is you drop your price. The other one is you do upgrades, and that is quite expensive if you've got everything ready and you've done everything and you have to start going back. It's not what you want to do. So it's always best to do this stuff early on. So again, just showing you that the guy with the lovely rooms needs 1 house to make £1,000 a month. The other guy he needs 2 houses because he's not had that attention to detail. He hasn't seen the advantage of having that differentiation, focusing on the detail, creating a product that people love. And as a result, he needs two sets of maintenance. So this picture here shows a room where all the paintwork has been painted in one color. So you've got a feature wall and you've painted the woodwork and the door, etc. And what this does, it modernizes the space. And this is something that I do quite a lot. And this shows you the traditional method. It shows you a woodwork painted in white, the wall painted in a neutral color. And then when I do it one color, it makes the space a lot more contemporary. So I use this quite a lot. Now, a lot of people, when they see what I do and they start painting feature walls, they paint feature walls in this way. They paint the walls in orange or whatever color it is, and they go and paint the woodwork white. Now, that is not the way to go painting feature walls. You really need to start looking at painting woodwork the same color as the wall. So when you're painting woodwork and you're painting wood, the wood needs to be painted in an eggshell finish. Normally oil-based paint, so oil eggshell. The walls are painted in emulsion, in matte emulsion. But that will make the feature wall really stand out. So even if there's a door on that wall, paint the door the same color. It's a really great little trick that I use. It's one of my little trade secrets. Now, the other thing I would recommend is when you start using color, don't use too much color. I've actually followed a principle that was penned by a really great designer called Dieter Rams. And Dieter Rams was quoted as saying, having small touches of color makes an object more colorful than having the whole thing in color. So I've been kind of following what Dieter Rams has been, his design principles. And this is one of the main ones that I follow. So this just shows you that, most of your property, most of your room space is going to be in a neutral color. If you're going to add an accent wall or a feature wall in a color, not in a neutral, but in a color, so in orange, red, whatever color you choose, don't paint more. Just bear with me a second. Hold on, that might be Jason. Hello?
Yeah, hi Julian. Sorry, we can't see or hear you, mate.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what then. That's gonna. It all says it's sharing with me, and it's even showing my microphone here. So it's saying that I'm live.
Everybody says it's okay. That's great.
You want to?
Okay, cool.
So I'm going to carry on. It's showing my screen, so I'm going to carry on. Okay.
Okay, brilliant. All right, wonderful. Thanks. Cool. Bye.
Technical stuff, I'm afraid. So this just shows you just to kind of continue. If you're going to be using color, don't use too much. Just use 20% color in a space. So if it's a room, for example, and you've got, if it's a rectangular room, then choose one of the smaller walls to paint in a color. A lot of people say if the bed is on that wall, paint the wall behind the bed. That's not necessarily the case. The rule is, if you're going to follow this rule, find the smaller wall and paint one of the smaller walls in a color. So just showing you here, this is not how I would do it, because that, if you did that, fine, it would be colorful, but it would just look it would just look too much. And the thing with design is it's just, I guess, you can't quite put your finger on why things are right and why things are wrong. And I've actually tried to see if there is any kind of system or principle that will guide you to applying color. And this is a way of this is a method that I've used to stop me from using too much, because it just doesn't look right. So I wouldn't do things that way. I would move the bed, and if I'm wanting to paint a wall, I would move the bed and paint the wall, the smaller wall in that room, in the color, because it would just work so much better. It would look much better as well. So if you are going to paint the wall, one of the larger walls, so let's say you've got this situation where you have to put the bed there, or you have to paint one of the larger walls in a color, then don't use color, use a darker neutral. So a darker gray, a darker brown, etc. Don't paint a large wall in a color. It's just too much. So this picture here just shows you how this looks when applied. So on this room here, the back wall, which is a large part of this picture, has been painted in a dark neutral. It is not painted in a color. It is a dark neutral. And then the color has been added in small amounts in accessories. And as a result, they stand out more. They're far more vibrant. And so I guess that is the secret of using color. Don't use too much. So the other thing is, it's so important to finish things off and photograph it well, purely because most of the buying decision online is visual. And so if you've got great photographs that really show off your product, you're far more likely to get people to click on that advert and to make that commitment to come and view. And there are very few people that get professional photographs done of their properties when they start marketing them. But photography is a really big thing. If you don't want to go and pay for a professional photographer, then buy a decent camera and take great pictures. So here you go. Here's not a very good picture, not a brilliant presented a product. And here is a nicely presented product and a nice picture. Nicely lit, beautiful and colorful. It's got a really nice lens that really shows off all the color. And finally, just a quote really. The difference between average and exceptional is attention to detail. So, really this stuff, it's not cheap, it's not expensive to do it, but it takes time. It takes attention to detail. So, having that attention to detail can increase your profits by so much. And so, when I do up a property, I think about things like light switches, door furniture, light fittings, etc. It all makes a big difference when you are selling a product online and you want to add the value. So I guess that's my slide presentation. Hopefully you've all seen it. I'm going to now hand back to Jason, and here we go.
Okay, that was a brilliant presentation. Can everyone hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Let's make sure. There we go. There's me back. Okay, yeah, so we saw we had a little issue in the midst of all of that, guys. It's pretty rare, but we're all sorted now. And, there's such good value that Julian gave there. So what I want to do, is it okay now, everybody, if I just run through a little bit about Julian's online course? If you could just let me know that that's okay. And then after we've done that, we'll do the Q&A, of course. If you can just put in the chat there, just to let me know if that's okay. Yeah, Aisha says yes. Poojan says yes. Brilliant. Bruce said it's okay. And Thomas, thanks very much, guys. We won't be very long, but I think it's very important you know about this course. It's brilliant. I've basically put it together from Julian's content, and I can tell you now it's extensive. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you couple of videos. First video I'm going to show you is a quick tour of the course itself so that you know about it. So let me just take a little look here and see if we can find it. And let's have a look at the back end tour.
This is the Property Investor's Guide to Design and Refurbishment by Julian Maurice. This is a highly comprehensive course that's going to change the way you refurbish your properties forever. With over 7 hours of video content, everything is covered from refurbishment to contractors to interior design, and all the help and advice that you need to turn your property ventures into a success. In section 1, in full video, we've got the case for why you must use interior design in your projects and the most effective way to lay out your property. Also, furnishing and staging your property can push up rental demand and get you higher rents and more monthly cash flow. And Julian covers exactly how you can achieve this. In section number 2, it talks about contractors. If you're going to be working with contractors, you need to cover this particular module. It talks about the production triangle to help you find the right contractors. Where do you go to find the right contractors? And the 7 essential things to look out for when you hire them. It'll also help you obtain quotes from contractors. It's an art and you need to learn how. It's a complete step-by-step guide to refurbishment. And also about contracts. Contracts that protect you and the client. Julian gives you his personal ancillary client agreement for you to print out and use, and also you learn how to do snagging like a pro. There's a full design manual with PDFs broken down into sections that you can just download and print out in your own time. All about design and communal areas of a building, how best to do it, what kind of lighting should you have, where do you buy it from. It's all covered here in this online course. And not only that, in the bonus section of the course, you'll also be able to have fact sheets and a list of Julian's own trade suppliers, not normally available to people unless you're a retail outlet. There'll be 6 done for you interior design themes, and also ready to print artwork that you can have printed online and put straight into IKEA frames to make your HMOs look stunning. There's example site notes, very important part of doing a project. There's an example method statement, which is widely used on construction projects for controlling of health and safety. All of this stuff has been done for you by Julian. There's also an HMO furnishing checklist to quickly ascertain what it is you need to kit out your HMO and make it fantastic. And then there's lifetime access to Julian's Design Graduates Facebook group, so you get continued access to Julian's help and support. Total value of these bonuses alone are £900, and you can get the whole course online with lifetime access for just £497.
Guys, well, the good news is tonight actually it's going to be a little bit cheaper than that. But before I go into that, let me just show you what people think of the course already.
Hi, my name is Julian Maurice, and thank you so much for checking out my home study course on interior design and project management here on onlinepropertycourses.com. I've created this course from over 20 years of experience doing refurbs. I've done a lot of interior design for property investors just like you. And they're people who, they've looked at their product and they want to, they want to up their game in their market. They want to make their product stand out so that when they come to sell it, it stands out from the competition, it rents faster. The rental market, today is becoming far more competitive. And in a competitive market, it's really important to think about how your product is going to stand out from that competition. And in this course, I show you how you can increase your rental income by making your HMO, buy-to-let or service department look really stunning without spending an absolute fortune. In the course, I'm going to go through the entire process of refurbishing, from layout planning, hiring contractors, obtaining quotes, contracts, snagging, to the interior design and furnishing stage. I've put in a very important section on due diligence, so you don't get caught out when buying a property. You understand your responsibilities, and so rather than things costing you thousands, you can actually make profit from the job without getting yourself into too much trouble. The course has taken me months of work, and there are over 7 hours of video content to make sure you've got all the knowledge you need to do successful refurbishments first time round. Once you buy the course, you'll be put onto my private Facebook group for ongoing support, so you're never left with any questions unanswered.
Well, the workshop exceeded my expectations today, far more than I was expecting.
Of come away with much better knowledge about how to plan a refurb, how to organise contractors, how to work with tradesmen. That was really, really beneficial for me.
I wanted to learn a lot more about refurbing, and I definitely felt that I learned that, and the way to do that in quite a methodical way and to focus on detail so that nothing sort of slipped through the cracks or got missed, so there weren't delays and you could maximise your profit.
So that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to connecting with you soon. Thank you.
So there we are, everyone. That's the course itself. Now, if you just click on the chat icon, which will be alternating between that and the head there, you'll see resources, and there's a link to be able to go and get the course now. But before you do, I want to let you know that if you use the code that I'm about to put in the chat box, which is JM100, you will save £100 off the course price if you buy this evening. And actually, the voucher code will run out after 5 people. It's only set to allow for 5 people to do it, and then it will just be expired. And yeah, that will stop working. So is everybody able to see the resources link there by clicking on the little head symbol? It's just at the top. And I'll send you a link as well in the chat so that you've got 2 methods to be able to go and get the course. By the way, you get lifetime access to the course. So as Julian makes changes and improvements, you'll also be able to have those. So it's kind of an ongoing course that improves itself.
Can you hear me okay, Jason?
I can, yes, Julian.
Okay, one thing I would have to say is that you have to friend me on Facebook. You have to also message me so that I can join you onto the forum.
Yep, so once you've actually bought the course, then you just befriend Julian, and then he'll put you into the private Facebook group. So it's a nice system. You'll have continued ongoing support from Julian, where he's most active, of course, in his own private group, looking after his own clients. So it also comes with a full 14-day money-back guarantee. So if you find that once you've gone in, it's not exactly what you'd had hoped or whatever else, then you are able to get a full refund, no questions asked. The only thing we'll probably do is ask for a little bit of feedback. What could we have done differently and so on? But I can tell you it gives you an awful lot more than just refurbishment and design. And there's an awful lot of Julian's years of experience in it. Well worth, to be honest, full price, if not more, really. So with that done, I will leave that with you guys. So now let's get on to, if that's okay with you, Julian, we'll do a bit of Q&A now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fine. Yeah, if you can hear me okay.
Great. So if anybody would like to put in some questions, I know there was some placed earlier on by a few people. We are now ready and waiting to take your questions. So fire away if you've got any, please. Let's just take a little look further up. So I know there was one. Ruth had a question earlier on, Julian. Yes. And she said, on the house that you were doing a certain style of house earlier on in your presentation. I believe it was your 3-bedroom place, terraced house. Yes. Do you do fire doors and hardwired smoke alarms? Was her first question. And her second question was, are the tenants on individual ASTs or all just on the same one?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. So I'll answer the last question first, because actually one thing that very few people talk about when they deliver training, I mean, I stick to interior design and refurbs, and I don't really try to get involved in the get rich quick type training courses. And one of the things that is failed, I think people fail to talk about, is the financing of projects. And the mortgages. And I think a lot of people think, yeah, we'll pull everything back out, it'll be no problem. Whereas I don't really, it isn't easy to do that. And I think if you overload things, then the profit goes down. So, that aside, that type of property isn't easy to get a mortgage product on, because it's the number of bedrooms. It's not quite a commercial product. So while I do have single ASTs, I did manage to find a mortgage product that was tailored towards that type of smaller HMO and that kind of value figure. A lot of mortgage companies want to will only lend to somebody if the property purchase price is above, say, £100,000. So it's not easy, but there are products about. You do have to find a reasonably good mortgage advisor that specialises in buy-to-let products. But there are lenders out there that will lend to investors doing smaller HMOs, and that was one of the reasons why I bought that type of house, is because buying a big HMO there are restrictions for people that have got no experience. Now, while I've worked in property for many years, I hadn't actually invested, so I couldn't really go and buy a big a 10-bed HMO, and in fact I really didn't have the money to go and buy at that kind of level, so I found something that suited my budget. But it is single ASTs, and there is a mortgage product in place that's not commercial. It's a buy-to-let product that allows me to create a small HMO and to do single AST. So that answers that question. The other question was about fire doors and smoke detectors. And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. While it is an unlicensed HMO, so if we're going to be talking about HMOs, while it is unlicensed, now unlicensed means that I don't need to pay the council a fee basically to have a certain type of product. So, if you've got a 5-bed or if it's on 3 floors, etc., then you need to pay the council is it 5 years? I mean, I don't know, because all my properties are unlicensed, but I think once every 5 or once every 3 years, about £800, just so you can sell rooms out of an HMO. This is unlicensed. However, saying that, it is still a commercial product. It is still a product that I'm selling to a consumer, and therefore safety and health and safety is really an important factor. So I have had the HMO officer around to this house very early on, and this is something that I recommend to anybody. And I'm amazed. I still get people that I'm talking to who are kind of halfway through a project and they've not even had the HMO officer around. They get the HMO officer around near the end. If you get the HMO officer around really early on, they'll tell you what you need to put in. And in where I buy property, they paint every type of HMO with the same brush. It doesn't matter how many rooms it's got. It doesn't matter what tenant type it is. All of them have to have fire doors. All of them have to have smoke detectors in the bedrooms. All of them have to have a good route, a certain type of route of escape, etc., etc. So they've set the if there's a standard that you have to apply to, they've kind of found the highest standard and then said, right, that's the standard that every HMO in our area has to comply with. There are no exceptions. So I don't argue with them. I just do what I'm told. So even though it's unlicensed, it complies with all the safety regs. It's all built in and it's all been specified into the job. So that's really, really important. And, even if, when I was a contractor, I used to think it was all a load of nonsense, all these HMO regs and the fire doors and everything. But since the licensing has come in, since the rules have come in, and since investing myself, I think my biggest fear would be, what if someone had an accident? What if someone got hurt in my property? What if there was a fire? And if you think like that, you don't really worry. You don't really kind of moan when somebody says put in fire doors. Where I do have an issue is things like, where they talk about things like soundproofing and stuff like that. And I've known them to specify soundproofing when it's totally unnecessary. But anyway, that's another story. We've had a question, haven't we? I've got one here from Poojan. How can we save on bills when running an HMO? That's a good question, is it not, Jason?
Certainly is.
He's gone quiet. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, no problem.
Okay. I can see your lips move. I can't actually hear you, so I'll carry on. How can we save on bills when running an HMO, etc.? Okay. So what I've done is The first thing is insulation, loft insulation. I've had situations where working with a client and they've gone, well, we can get a green deal on loft insulation, so we're going to get British Gas round to have a look round because I can get it for free. And by the end of the project, they've not even bothered because British Gas have gone in, said we can't do it because of this, that and the other. They've not bothered. It doesn't cost a lot to get a whole load of loft insulation from somewhere like Selco's, for example, builders merchants. And I've just put loads of it in. So loads of loft insulation. I've also got carpets. So I don't put in laminate floors. Carpets and underlay will save on heating because they keep a place warmer. There is another layer of insulation. I've put in internet-enabled heating systems. So I use a system called Inspire Home Automation. You may want to look that up. The difficulty with these systems is that they are complicated to actually set up at first. You have to get your head around the dashboard, how they work online. You have to register the system. But I was determined to make sure that I got them right. So, you have to, again, it's attention to detail. It's the same thing. If you're not going to be hands-on and you're not going to be bothered to actually, set these things up, then don't bother. But if you do want to save money, you do want to have this kind of ease of use, then you have to you have to go through the learning curve and understand the technicalities of these things. Insulation, internet-enabled heating systems, carpets and underlay, and also I bought a terraced house in the middle of the terrace, so the heating actually doesn't escape through the sides; it only kind of comes out through the roof, and there's loads of insulation. So I really don't have a problem with over high heating bills. Electricity. LED bulbs. I don't think there's a lot of things nowadays that use up huge amounts of electricity. I've put in dryers in my properties because I want to minimize condensation, and they can be a little bit expensive to run. But, I've not really, I kind of try to minimize things as much as I can. Tenants are fairly okay. I think the way to minimize on electricity bills is the type of tenants that you get. So for example, if you're going to be getting students in and you're paying the bills, then students are in most of the time, and they turn up all the heating and they've got their Xboxes and they're in with their mates playing on their computer games most of the time. And so they're in, and if they're in, they're using electricity. If you go for professional tenants that are working all day, then they're out most of the time. And then when they come home, they have a bit of dinner and they go to bed. So they use far less electricity. So again, it's the tenant type. And so that's what I think as well. Tenant type. Do I have a fair usage policy? I think there is. Jason's disappeared. There we go. You've gone back. You can hear me okay. So do I have a fair usage policy? I'll tell you what I do have. I have a don't take the piss policy. I don't mean to sound rude, but I just have a don't take the piss policy. I have these chalkboard walls that I put on in the house. So like blackboard walls, and I put down tenant rules, things like don't leave your dishes for anybody else to clean up. Don't leave rubbish lying around, etc., etc. And it's down to the type of tenants that you get. So, when I'm talking about going up market and aiming your product at the higher end of the market, what I've found is if you do that, the better quality tenants look after their rooms and look after the space a lot better. And actually, if anything goes wrong, they're on the phone or they're sending messages to say, Julian, this isn't right, that's not right. And some people actually might think, oh God, I really don't want to be hearing this stuff. Well, actually, for me, I think that property is a very easy way of making money. So if I get a couple of phone calls from people saying this isn't right, that isn't right, they're doing number one, they're doing my job for me. And number two, it means that things don't become big issues. They stay small, I deal with them, and they're done with. If we're talking about fair usage, people not taking the mickey, it's down to good customer service, good communication, and good tenant type. If you've got that, you're far less likely for people to take the mickey. And that comes down to, if we're going to be going back to design, something that's beautifully designed and you charge more for will get a better type of customer. And they're far less likely to take the mickey. So that's how it works. There we go. So I think that's it. And then no more questions. Could you share the lender for me? Well, I can't at the moment because I've actually tried to get another mortgage product with them, and they've said we don't do it anymore. But I can certainly share with you a couple. Do you want me to share with a couple of mortgage advisors that I can recommend, or not, Jason?
That'd be great, Julian.
Okay. Well, actually, the guy that I would recommend, if I go through my phone book, there's two people. And I would say if you're thinking of getting involved in any kind of purchase, if you're looking at investing in property, the first thing you need to do is have an agreement in principle and get that sorted out first of all. Speak to a mortgage advisor and see what your capabilities are. So, Peter, guy I would recommend, actually, who's really good, is a guy called Peter Opie. And his company is called Mortgage Style Limited. And his work number is 01275 370 360. 01275 370 360. And he's really good.
Was that Mortgage Spire? SPIRE?
No, Mortgage Style.
Style. Okay, great.
Mortgage Style.
Okay. That's just been posted out now, so everyone's got the number.
Okay, I'd give you one more. And he's a bit of a mortgage geek, I would say. Little bit different, works for himself. So not because he works for himself, he can be a little bit busy, but this guy is so passionate about mortgages. I'm frightened of calling him up because I end up on the phone to him for about 2 hours with him talking about mortgages. The guy's name is Paul Adamson, of a company called Bespoke Finance. And his email address is paul.adamson, that's paul.adamson, ADAMSON, at bespokefinance. Oh, hang on, I'm not getting this here. Hang on. Problem with Apple phones is that they don't give you all of the thing. Let me just bring it up on my contacts list, if you just bear with me a second. Info at bespokefinance.info, an unusual ending to an email address. It's paul.adamson at bespokefinance.info. Great guy, and highly recommended. So there we go. So what area of Leeds is good for serviced accommodation? What area of Leeds is good for serviced accommodation? Poojan's getting her money's worth today, I believe, Jason?
Yeah, I think so. Who else has got some questions as well, guys?
Yeah.
Somebody must have a question for Julian. He's got a lot of knowledge. You need to start tapping into it. Yeah.
So if we're looking at location, I was going to do a whole webinar on this. This is about sourcing property and where to find property and thinking about your chosen strategy. One of the things that I would strongly recommend if you're looking to buy property is find something that works for you. Don't switch between one and another ideas. Focus on one thing. And I guess that it depends on your budget. I think budget really does dictate strategy in a lot of cases. Serviced accommodation is something I don't get involved in by choice because I guess my chosen strategy is HMOs. Serviced accommodation for me is a bit too much like hard work, but I guess it can be very profitable. Which area of Leeds are good for serviced accommodation? That's quite difficult because it depends. I've looked at serviced accommodation, and if we're looking at the market like I did on Airbnb, you've got high end and low end. The low end of the market is like the contractor end, and then the high end is like families and good locations and so on. The good thing about, you're talking about Leeds, I think if you're looking at Leeds, then you need to be in quite a smart location. But the thing is, Leeds is in the middle of Yorkshire, and Yorkshire is a very popular tourist destination. And you might find actually that areas outside of Leeds where property is cheaper can get you the same kind of income, the same sale price, but the actual purchase price of that property can be a lot less. So therefore, the profit margin is a lot higher. So I would actually if I was looking at serviced accommodation in Yorkshire, I may not be looking at the Leeds area. because of the cost of accommodation. If you are going to look in Leeds, then I would probably look at new build or second-hand new build stuff, city centre apartments, because they saw a huge drop in price during the when the property crash happened. They dropped by about 50%, and there has been in the past a bit of a glut of kind of apartments, and like one or two, I think 2-bedroom apartments in the city centre. And I would probably be looking at seeing if I could find some cheap bargains on kind of new build type product, because it's easy to get to from the station. If you find something like that, I think that would probably prove to be quite popular. And you might be able to pick up a bargain, because I know there's quite a lot of repossessions in that marketplace. So that's what I would be looking at, that kind of thing.
Julian,
then do your homework.
Julian, what's your thoughts on Fusion Furniture and using them for HMOs?
Well, that's something that I do go through in the number one there in the manual. I go through all the different options. And I also go through that on the training videos as well. Yeah. Fusion Furniture, as a company, are the company that I personally recommend, purely because they're a family-run. I think they're a family-run business. They're fairly small, and they're reliable, and they've got a good kind of very simple product range. So it's very easy to choose things. There's not a huge amount. I mean, if I've gone on to companies like Loft or John Phillips, I think they're called John Phillips, and other companies, they can make the process of finding the right package really, really difficult. And so I think that using a company like Fusion, where they don't have such a huge range of different options, makes things far simpler. They also do kind of dressing packs as well. Personally, what I would do is I would get a company like Fusion to do the basics. So to supply you with just the furniture. And then I would add my own personal touch on top of that. So in some things that I like to supply myself are things like bedside cabinets, because I kind of like to get some funky ones. So I would get them to do the basics, and then add the detail, add the kind of finishing touches, and a few signature pieces. I call them signature pieces because things that stand out as being really nicely designed, etc. And I would bring them in on top of that base. So I would use them as the bare bones, and then I would fill it out with things that I would go and choose myself. I would not get a company like that. Did you see those pictures? Hopefully you didn't miss them, but the pictures of all the average rooms, and there was some which just had a bed and a wardrobe and a couple of bits of furniture in.
Yeah, that's pretty dire.
Yeah, but that's standard kind of landlord furniture pack fare, to be honest.
It
and
is.
What these investors have done, and I have seen this happen so many times with repossessions, is that what some landlords have done is they thought, I'll get a furniture company to fit the furniture, and that's enough. That's all that's needed. It isn't it's not enough. So while it's convenient to use these companies, you still have to go in and do the finishing touches yourself.
Especially if you want to charge more for your rooms than the competition. That's how you're going to get.
It's not only that. Well, it's not only that. If you want to stand out, which you have to do. I mean, I keep saying this, but the only way my rooms are full all the time is because my rooms look better than everybody else's. And the only way I've been able to do that is by focusing and spending the time myself and putting that attention to detail in myself. No one else can do that unless you're going to pay a lot of money to get someone else to do it. But most investors like this kind of hands-off option where you can't create a great business without getting involved, without getting your hands dirty. Just take Steve Jobs as an example. He used to sign off everything, and did till his dying day. And while a lot of people can argue that he was a horrible person, in terms of his attention to detail and the product, his name was over everything. And I would take that as inspiration. I don't think you can get away from it.
All right, great. Well, I think, if we've got no more questions then, guys, we'd like to thank you ever so much for coming on board tonight and watching the workshop. I hope it didn't drop out for you too much. Big thank you to Julian for sharing so much knowledge for free with you guys. If you want to get the course, I suggest you would do it fairly soon if you want to use the voucher code, because as I said, there's only a couple more left anyway. And then you've got lifetime access to the course and ongoing training. So thanks ever so much, and we will see you all again very soon.